It was a heated morning at the White House press briefing room. Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary under President Donald Trump, stood at the podium, her eyes sharp and focused. The room was buzzing with reporters eager to ask about the latest news. The topic that everyone wanted to know about: the massive hike in tariffs on China. A 145% tariff increase had just been announced, sending shockwaves through international markets. The world had already been grappling with a trade war, but now it seemed like the stakes had been raised even higher. Karoline adjusted her microphone, giving the room a moment to settle before she spoke. Ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, President Trump has decided to take a bold stance in dealing with China. These tariffs are necessary to level the playing field for American businesses and workers. We're not going to allow China to continue its unfair trade practices and steal intellectual property from American companies. As the words left her mouth, reporters fired off questions, some supportive of the move, others skeptical. The global economy was already teetering on the edge, and now this tariff hike threatened to escalate tensions even further. In the midst of the whirlwind, one reporter raised their hand, and Karoline pointed to them. "Yes, go ahead," Karoline said. A reporter from CNN stood up and asked, "Karoline, what do you say to critics who argue that these tariffs will only hurt American consumers, driving up prices on everyday goods?" Karoline's face hardened. She knew what was at stake. "We are prepared for short-term challenges, but this is about long-term prosperity for the American people," she replied. "The president's commitment is to put American workers first. The short-term pain will lead to long-term gain. This is about ensuring that our nation no longer becomes a victim of China's economic tactics." The reporter nodded but remained skeptical, scribbling down notes. Karoline felt her resolve strengthen. She knew this was a pivotal moment. The press had been quick to question the president's decisions, and Karoline had become his most steadfast defender. As the briefing continued, news broke that Hillary Clinton had made a scathing remark about Trump's tariff increase. She called it a reckless and foolish decision that will hurt American families. According to Hillary, the tariffs were nothing more than a political stunt, a way for Trump to drum up support for his re-election campaign without regard for the consequences. The words stung. Karoline had never been a fan of Hillary Clinton, and the former Secretary of State's remarks were clearly designed to undermine the president's actions. Clinton had always been critical of Trump's policies, but this felt different. Felt personal. As a woman who had made a name for herself in the political world, Karoline knew exactly what it meant to be undermined by someone who didn't understand the realities of power. Later that day, Karoline was in her office, preparing for the next round of media interactions. The press had already latched onto Hillary's comments, and the White House needed a response. Karoline picked up the phone, dialing her communications team to plan a strategy. "Hillary's comments cannot go unanswered," Karoline said, her tone decisive. "We need to come out swinging. This is bigger than just a policy disagreement. It's about proving that Trump's leadership is what America needs in this moment." The next day, during her usual press briefing, Karoline took her position at the podium. Her nerves were steady, but her mind was racing with anticipation. It was time for the world to hear her response to Hillary Clinton's mocking comments. Yesterday, Hillary Clinton decided to make her opinion known about President Trump's decision to impose tariffs on China. Karoline began, her voice calm but with an edge of determination. And what did she say? She called it reckless, foolish. She said it would hurt American families. But let's take a moment and think about that. She paused, letting the weight of her words hang in the air. The room was quiet as every reporter hung on to her every syllable. Where was Hillary Clinton when China was stealing our jobs? When American businesses were being undercut by unfair trade practices? Karoline continued, "Let me tell you, this is not about politics. This is about standing up for American workers who have been taken advantage of for far too long. And if that's reckless, then I guess we have a difference of opinion." The reporters exchanged glances, sensing the tension in the room. Karoline's tone was unyielding, and there was a sharpness in her eyes that could not be ignored. "I understand that Hillary Clinton likes to criticize President Trump from the safety of her cushy political career. Karoline went on, her voice cutting through the air like a knife. But let's be clear. She's part of the same old political elite that sold out American workers in favor of globalism. It's time for someone to stand up to China, and President Trump is doing exactly that. He's not afraid to make the tough decisions, even if it ruffles a few feathers. The room was silent for a moment as Karoline's words settled in. Some reporters seemed to be processing her argument, while others were ready to strike back. But Karoline wasn't finished yet. President Trump is the only one who has the courage to take on China head-on. And if Hillary Clinton wants to mock that, then she's out of touch with what's really happening in this country, Karoline said, her voice firm. The president's tariffs are about protecting American jobs, protecting American industries, and securing our future. The very next day, Hillary Clinton took to social media, ready to escalate the war of words. The tweet came early in the morning, sending ripples through the media. Hillary's message was clear. Karoline Leavitt and Donald Trump's tariffs are not just harmful to American consumers, they're a blatant attack on the very principles of free trade that have made this country great. The president's actions are reckless and they will hurt millions of hardworking Americans. I have warned about these policies before and they will only lead to chaos. The tweet went viral. Within hours, the media was buzzing, rehashing every word of Hillary's statement. The narrative quickly spun into a clash between the old guard of American politics, Hillary Clinton, and the new, populist approach championed by President Trump. Reporters were eager to get Karoline's response, and it was clear she wasn't going to let this slide. That afternoon, Karoline Leavitt entered the press room, once again poised at the podium. The room had grown more tense, the stakes higher. Reporters quickly honed in on the issue, their questions sharper, more critical. Karoline, Hillary Clinton has now doubled down on her criticism of the president's tariff increase, one reporter asked. She says these tariffs are not just bad for consumers, they're a threat to free trade. How do you respond to that? Karoline looked at the reporter, unfazed. She had been ready for this moment. Her expression softened, but her words were piercing. Hillary Clinton has been part of the political establishment for decades. She's a career politician who spent her time in office pushing globalist policies that didn't work for the American people, Karoline said, her tone measured but firm. Now she wants to lecture us about free trade? Let's not forget, under her watch, China was allowed to manipulate the global market, stealing American jobs and intellectual property without consequence. President Trump is the first leader to stand up to China, and if Hillary can't see that, then she's living in the past. The reporters were quick to follow up with more questions, but Karoline was on a roll. She'd never been more certain of her words. The attack from Hillary Clinton had only fueled her resolve. Hillary Clinton and the left want to talk about free trade, but what we're talking about is fair trade, Karoline continued. For too long, America has been on the losing side of trade agreements, with China benefiting at our expense. Under President Trump, we're making sure that American workers have a fair shot. These tariffs are a necessary step in leveling the playing field. They're a message to China and to the world that we won't be taken advantage of any longer. The room was silent as Karoline's words hung in the air. There was no question about it, she had made her position clear. But she wasn't done yet. Hillary Clinton may have a lot to say about trade, but she has no idea what it's like to fight for American workers, Karoline added, her voice growing stronger. She spent her career cozying up to the political elite while the working class was left behind. Under President Trump's leadership, we're giving those forgotten Americans a voice, and it's one that Hillary Clinton doesn't seem to understand. The press conference continued, but the tension was palpable. Karoline had drawn a line in the sand, and she had no intention of backing down. The media buzzed, and the public was starting to take notice. The clash between Karoline Leavitt and Hillary Clinton wasn't just about tariffs, it was about power, influence, and the future direction of the country. Back in her office, Karoline was reflecting on the day's briefing. As usual, she was sharp, focused, and prepared for whatever came next. But she knew Hillary Clinton wouldn't let this go so easily. The former Secretary of State had a reputation for never backing down from a fight, especially when it came to her political legacy. As she sat in her chair, Karoline's phone buzzed. It was a text message from one of her colleagues at the White House. Hillary's planning a live appearance on CNN tonight. She's going to double down on the attack. Get ready. Karoline's lips curled into a smile. She was ready. She wasn't going to let Hillary Clinton get away with undermining President Trump's policies. This was a battle for the soul of the nation, and Karoline Leavitt was determined to win it. That evening, Hillary Clinton appeared on CNN sitting down for a live interview with Anderson Cooper. She wasted no time in launching another attack on the Trump administration's tariffs. Let's be clear, Hillary began, her voice cool and collected. These tariffs are a disaster in the making. They're going to hurt American families, raise prices on everyday goods, and destabilize the global economy. The president is using these tariffs as a political tool, a way to distract from his failing leadership. Anderson Cooper nodded, but Hillary was on a roll, her words coming fast and furious. The problem with President Trump is that he doesn't understand the complexity of global trade, she continued. He's isolating us from our allies and pushing policies that only benefit a few at the top. This is not the America I know, and it's not the America that will thrive in the future. The following day, Karoline Leavitt knew that Hillary Clinton's appearance on CNN would have sent shockwaves through the media. It was only a matter of time before reporters came knocking again, seeking her response. But this time, it wasn't just about defending President Trump's tariffs, it was about proving who was truly in touch with the American people. As Karoline entered the press room, she could feel the electric atmosphere. The room was full of reporters eager to hear her thoughts on Hillary's latest remarks. She stepped up to the podium, ready to continue the fight. Yesterday, Hillary Clinton once again made her position on President Trump's tariffs clear. Karoline began, her tone deliberate, measured. But let's break this down for a moment. Hillary Clinton claims that the tariffs will harm American families. She talks about global instability, about raising prices on goods, and about isolating us from our allies. But what she doesn't mention is the simple fact that China has been abusing trade practices for years, and President Trump is finally holding them accountable. Karoline paused, allowing her words to sink in. She wasn't going to let Hillary's rhetoric go unchecked. She was prepared to hit back with facts. Hillary wants to paint President Trump as someone who doesn't understand global trade, but let's not forget that she was part of the administration that let China run wild with unfair trade practices, Karoline continued. Under her watch, China was given a free pass to steal American jobs, to manipulate the market, and to flood our economy with cheap goods that undercut American businesses. Now, President Trump is standing up to them, and that's what leadership looks like. She could see some of the reporters nodding in agreement, others scribbling notes furiously. But Karoline wasn't about to stop there. Let's talk about the real consequences of Hillary's approach, she said, her voice rising with passion. She's all about free trade, but free trade only works if both sides are playing by the same rules. China hasn't been playing fair, and that's why these tariffs are necessary. They're not just about punishing China, they're about protecting American workers and industries that have been under siege for far too long. The room was growing more intense, and Karoline could feel the pressure mounting. But she stood tall, unwavering in her defense of President Trump's policies. This wasn't just about trade, it was about a larger battle between two competing visions for America's future. America is not a global playground for other nations to take advantage of. Karoline continued, her voice unwavering. President Trump understands the importance of putting America first. We're not going to sit back and let China continue to undermine our economy. If Hillary Clinton wants to stand by her failed policies, that's her prerogative. But we're focused on protecting American families and ensuring that our nation thrives in the 21st century. At that moment, a reporter from the New York Times stood up. Karoline, do you think Hillary Clinton is right when she says that President Trump's actions are part of a political distraction designed to divert attention away from his administration's failures? Karoline didn't flinch. She had anticipated this question, and she was ready. Hillary Clinton's accusation is as old as the political establishment itself, Karoline fired back. Whenever the president makes bold moves that challenge the status quo, the elites come out of the woodwork to attack him. But let's be clear, this isn't a distraction. This is about securing America's future. President Trump is focused on real solutions for real American families, not political games. And if Hillary Clinton wants to keep playing those games, that's her choice. The room was silent for a moment. Karoline had made her point, and she had done so with precision. But she knew this wasn't over. Hillary Clinton wasn't going to back down, and neither was she. That night, Karoline received a call from her communications team. We've just learned that Hillary Clinton is preparing to hold a rally tomorrow, where she's planning to double down on her criticisms of President Trump's tariff policy. The voice on the other end said, she's going to call for an all-out campaign against these tariffs, and she's going to push for bipartisan support to roll them back. Karoline leaned back in her chair, deep in thought. She knew that Hillary was gearing up for a full-scale attack, but Karoline was ready. It was time for her to take this fight directly to the American people. The next day, Hillary Clinton's rally was packed with her supporters, all chanting in unison. Hillary took the stage, her face a picture of determination as she prepared to make her case. "These tariffs, folks, are a disaster," Hillary began, her voice ringing out across the crowd. "They will raise prices, they will cost jobs, and they will harm American families. This is not the leadership we need. We need someone who will restore the United States' position as a leader in the global economy, not someone who is pushing us into a trade war." The crowd erupted into applause, but Hillary wasn't done. President Trump's tariffs are nothing more than a political stunt, a way to distract from his failed policies on healthcare, immigration, and the economy, she continued. This president has no plan for the future. He only cares about his own re-election, and these tariffs are a smokescreen to cover up his failures. It was the kind of speech Hillary Clinton had given countless times throughout her career, sharp, biting, and full of rhetoric designed to paint President Trump as a failure. But Karoline Leavitt wasn't going to let it stand. That afternoon, Karoline took to social media, posting a video response to Hillary's rally. The message was simple but powerful. "Folks, we've heard from Hillary Clinton, and once again, she's pushing the same old failed policies that have left American workers behind," Karoline began. "She wants to talk about free trade, but let's be clear, free trade only works when both sides play fair. China has been stealing our jobs for years, and President Trump is the only leader who has the guts to do something about it. These tariffs are about standing up for America. They're about protecting American workers, and they're about making sure our future is secure." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. Hillary Clinton might talk a big game about leadership, but it's President Trump who is delivering real results for the American people. We're not going to let her push us back into a system that works for everyone but us. Karoline finished the video with a confident smile. She knew the fight was far from over, but she was more than ready for the challenge. It was clear now that this was no longer just about tariffs, it was about a larger ideological battle between two opposing forces. And Karoline was determined to ensure that President Trump's vision for America won out. The days following Karoline Leavitt's video response were filled with intense media coverage. It wasn't just about the tariffs anymore. It had become a full-scale political battle. The mainstream media continued to push Hillary Clinton's narrative that President Trump's tariffs were reckless and harmful, but Karoline was having none of it. Every opportunity she had to speak, she took it, fiercely defending the administration's policies and taking the fight directly to Hillary Clinton and her allies. As the next press briefing approached, Karoline was prepared for the continued onslaught of questions. This time, however, the media was more focused on the growing backlash against the tariffs. Critics from both sides of the aisle were starting to speak up, with some Republican lawmakers expressing concerns about the potential economic consequences. The pressure was mounting, and Karoline had to maintain her composure while defending the president's policies. As she took the stage, a reporter from Politico was quick to bring up the dissent within the Republican Party. "Karoline, as you know, several Republican lawmakers have voiced concerns about the president's tariffs. Some are worried that the trade war with China will hurt American farmers and manufacturers. How do you respond to those concerns?" Karoline didn't flinch. She had anticipated this question. With a calm but assertive tone, she began. "Look, we understand that change can be difficult," Karoline said. "But President Trump is not afraid to make the tough decisions for the future of America. These tariffs are not about punishing anyone. They're about securing American interests. For far too long, China has been taking advantage of the United States, and President Trump is the first leader to stand up to them. Yes, there will be some short-term pain, but the long-term gains will be worth it. American farmers and manufacturers will benefit once we have a fairer playing field." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the room. "This isn't just about one industry. This is about making America strong again. It's about securing a future where American businesses can thrive without being undercut by unfair foreign practices. Some people may not like it, but this is the right move for America." The room was silent for a moment as the reporters absorbed her words. Karoline had once again shown her unwavering confidence, but the political battle was far from over. She knew that Hillary Clinton and her supporters would continue to push their narrative. But she also knew that the American people were starting to see through the smoke and mirrors of the political establishment. Later that evening, Hillary Clinton made another public appearance, this time on MSNBC. She was once again attacking President Trump's tariffs. But this time, she had a new angle. She framed the tariffs as part of a broader pattern of authoritarianism under the Trump administration. President Trump's policies are not just economically disastrous, Hillary said with her trademark sharpness. They are part of a larger strategy to undermine the democratic values that America was founded on. This tariff war with China is a smokescreen to distract from his failures at home. And we cannot allow this president to continue to weaken our global standing for the sake of his political ego. Her words rang out across the country and the media machine went into overdrive, covering every detail of her statements. But once again, Karoline was ready. The next day, she appeared on Fox News, determined to counter Hillary's narrative. The American people aren't fooled by these fear-mongering tactics, Karoline said confidently. Hillary Clinton and the left want to tell us that these tariffs are destroying our global reputation, but the truth is, America has been losing its place in the global economy for years. Under President Trump, we are taking bold steps to correct those wrongs. It's not about weakening America, it's about making America stronger. She paused for a moment, letting her words sink in. Hillary Clinton's message is clear. She's more concerned with the opinions of foreign leaders and multinational corporations than she is with the future of American workers. But President Trump is standing up for the American people, and we will not back down. The response from the American public was swift. Social media platforms exploded with support for Karoline, with many users praising her for taking on Hillary Clinton and standing firm in defense of the president's policies. The hashtag Leavitt versus Clinton trended across Twitter, with thousands of Americans weighing in on the growing political clash. As Karoline walked through the White House halls, she could sense that things were changing. The media, the establishment, and even some members of the political elite had underestimated her. But now, they were seeing her as a force to be reckoned with, a fierce advocate for the Trump administration who was willing to take on anyone who stood in the way. The following week, the tension between Karoline and Hillary reached its peak. It was a pivotal moment, one that would determine the narrative going forward. The White House had just announced a major new trade deal with several countries, and it was seen as a significant win for President Trump's economic policies. Karoline Leavitt was prepared to showcase this victory, but Hillary Clinton wasn't about to let it pass without taking another shot. At a press conference, Hillary Clinton held a rally in New York where she doubled down on her criticisms of the trade deal and the administration's tariffs. Once again, we are seeing the consequences of President Trump's reckless economic policies, Hillary said, her voice full of disdain. This trade deal is not a victory for the American people. It is a political maneuver designed to distract from the failures of the Trump administration. The political showdown between Karoline Leavitt and Hillary Clinton had now reached a fever pitch. The stakes had never been higher. The media, the American public, and even world leaders were watching as this high-profile battle unfolded. Both women had dug in their heels, each determined to convince the nation that their vision for America was the right one. But in the final moments of this ongoing clash, it became clear that Karoline was winning the hearts and minds of the American people. The pressure mounted as Hillary Clinton continued to hammer President Trump's tariff policies, calling them a disaster for the American economy. She argued that the tariffs were not just harming international trade, but also hurting hardworking Americans who depended on lower-priced goods from abroad. In her latest speech, Hillary had declared that the trade war was a colossal mistake and urged Congress to take action to roll back the tariffs. But Karoline Leavitt wasn't about to let these accusations slide. She knew that the battle for public opinion was the key to securing the administration's vision for America's future. That afternoon, Karoline took to social media once again, this time with a powerful video message aimed directly at Hillary Clinton and her supporters. Let's get one thing straight, Karoline began, her tone sharp and confident. Hillary Clinton and her allies want to tell you that these tariffs are a failure. They want to paint President Trump as reckless and out of touch. But let's be honest, under their watch, China was allowed to steal American jobs, manipulate currency, and flood our markets with cheap goods that hurt American workers. She paused for a moment, ensuring her words hit their mark. The truth is that the tariffs are working. American manufacturers are coming back to life. Jobs are being created and American workers are finally getting a fair deal, Karoline continued. And while Hillary Clinton stands up in front of her wealthy donors and global elites, President Trump stands up for the American people. He doesn't care about the political elite. He cares about you. The video spread like wildfire, quickly amassing millions of views and overwhelming the social media platforms with a tide of support. The hashtag Leavitt versus Clinton surged to the top of Twitter trends, and millions of Americans began voicing their support for Karoline's straightforward and unwavering defense of President Trump's policies. But the turning point came when a powerful moment unfolded during a live televised debate between Karoline and Hillary Clinton. It had been set up as a last-ditch effort to settle the score once and for all. The stage was set, two political heavyweights, one representing the Trump administration and the other representing the old guard, face to face. The debate began with Hillary attacking President Trump's tariff policy once again. She spoke passionately about the dangers of the trade war and how it was alienating America from its allies. These tariffs are a blight on the American economy, Hillary declared. They have already caused prices to rise, small businesses to suffer, and relationships with our allies to erode. If we continue down this path, we are putting the future of our children at risk. Karoline listened carefully, her eyes locked on Hillary as she spoke. She could feel the weight of the moment. This was more than just about tariffs. This was a chance to defend the future of America. When it was her turn to speak, Karoline didn't hesitate. Hillary, with all due respect, you're living in the past, Karoline began, her voice steady but firm. Under your leadership and the leadership of your party, America was a punching bag for China. They took our jobs, manipulated our economy, and built a global empire at our expense. President Trump is the first leader in decades to say enough is enough. The audience fell silent as Karoline's words cut through the air. She continued, her message unwavering. These tariffs are not about hurting the American people, they are about securing our future. President Trump is making sure that China plays by the rules, and he's putting American workers first. The jobs we're bringing back are real jobs. American manufacturing is thriving again, and we are no longer at the mercy of unfair trade practices. Karoline paused for a moment, allowing her words to settle. Hillary, you may be focused on global elites and appeasing foreign leaders, but President Trump is focused on bringing jobs back to America. He's standing up for every single American who has been left behind by your policies. The audience erupted in applause. It was clear that Karoline had won this round. She had not only made a powerful case for the administration's tariff policy, but she had also framed the debate in terms that resonated with the average American. Over the next few days, the media coverage was relentless. Polls showed that Karoline's approval rating was climbing rapidly while Hillary's continued to plummet. The American people were beginning to understand the true nature of the battle. This was about protecting American jobs, securing the nation's economic future, and taking a stand against foreign manipulation. In the aftermath of the debate, Karoline took a moment to reflect on the journey. She had come into this fight as a relatively unknown figure, but now she was recognized as one of the most powerful voices in the Trump administration. Her defense of President Trump's policies had earned her the respect of millions of Americans, and it was clear that she had played a pivotal role in shaping the future of America's trade policy. Hillary Clinton, on the other hand, found herself on the defensive. Her once powerful position was crumbling, and it became clear that her vision for the country was no longer in line with the direction that many Americans wanted to go. Her political influence began to wane, while Karoline's star continued to rise. As Karoline stood before the press once more, delivering another impassioned defense of President Trump's policies, she knew that the battle was far from over. But she was more than ready for whatever came next. The tide had turned in favor of the president's vision, and Karoline Leavitt had proven that she was not just a spokesperson for the White House. She was a force to be reckoned with. The media, the political elites, and the American people had all witnessed the truth. In the battle between Karoline Leavitt and Hillary Clinton, it was clear who had come out victorious.